Hi students! Today I wanted to read a book called Pumpkin Soup. It was written by Helen Cooper. Looking at the front cover, I see animals, and they do seem to be eating some sort of soup. Maybe that's what pumpkin soup looks like. I'm going to read and find out more about these characters. Pumpkin Soup by Helen Cooper. Deep in the woods, there's an old white cabin with pumpkins in the garden. There's a smell of soup, and at night, with luck, you might see a bagpiping cat through the window, and a squirrel with a banjo, and a small singing duck. Pumpkin soup, the best you've ever tasted, made by the cat who slices up the pumpkin, made by the squirrel who stirs in the water, made by the duck who scoops up a pipkin of salt and tips in just enough. Who are our characters? We have the cat, the squirrel, and the duck. And it seems like they each have a job. They slurp their soup and play their song, then pop off to bed in a quilt stitched together by the cat, embroidered by the squirrel, and filled with fine feathers from the duck. And it's peaceful in the old white cabin. Everyone has his own job to do. Everyone is happy, or so it seems. But one morning the duck woke up early. He tiptoed into the kitchen and smiled at Squirrel's special spoon. "Wouldn't it be fine," he murmured, "if I could be the head cook?" He drew up a stool, hopped on top, and reached until his beak just touched the tip of the spoon. Kerplunk! Down it clattered, and then the duck trotted back to the bedroom, held up the spoon, and said, "Today it's my turn to stir the soup." Wonder how our other characters feel about that. "That's mine," squeaked the squirrel. "Stirring is my job. Give that back." "You're much too small," snapped the cat. "We'll cook the way we always have." But the duck held on tight until the squirrel tugged with all his might, and whoops! The spoon spun through the air and bopped Cat on the head. Then there was trouble. A horrible squabble, a row, a racket, a rumpus in the old white cabin. "I'm not staying here," wailed the duck. "You never let me help with anything." And he packed up a wheelbarrow, put on his hat, and waddled away. "You'll be back," stormed the cat, "after we've cleaned up." And the squirrel shook his spoon in the air. But the duck didn't come back. Not for breakfast. Not even for lunch. "I'll find him," scoffed the cat. "He'll be hiding outside." "I bet he's in the pumpkin patch." But the duck was not in the pumpkin patch. They could not find him anywhere. So what do we know about our characters so far? We have the cat, we have the squirrel, and we have the duck. They're each supposed to have their own job. Do you remember what the duck's old job was? Do you remember what he wants to do? And whose job is that? Would they let him do it? And how did Duck feel? So what did he do? He left. And now they're looking for him. They assume he's outside hiding. So they waited. All that long afternoon, the cat watched the door, the squirrel paced the floor. That means that he walked back and forth. "That duck'll be sorry when he comes home," they muttered. But the duck didn't come home, not even at soup time. The soup wasn't tasty. They'd made it too salty. Because remember, that was Duck's job. He had to put in a pipkin of salt. It's a very small amount, and it's just the right amount. He used to do his job really, really well. So when they tried to do his job, they didn't do it so well, and it was too salty. And they both sobbed over supper. See them crying? Their tears dripped into the soup and made it even saltier. "We should have let him stir the soup," sniffled the squirrel. "He was only trying to help," wept the cat. "Let's go out and look for him." So what are they thinking? Did their feelings change? Their feelings changed a lot. Before they were mad at him. They wouldn't let him take a turn at a different job. And now they're thinking maybe they should have let him take a different turn. The cat and the squirrel were scared as they wandered down the path in the dark, dark woods. They feared for the duck, all alone with the trees, and the foxes, and the wolves, and the witches, and the bears. But they couldn't find him. On and on they trudged until they reached the edge of a steep, steep cliff. "Maybe he fell down that," wailed the cat. "I'll save him," squeaked the squirrel, and he scrambled down on a long, shaky rope, and he searched all around on the ground, but he couldn't find the duck. Then the cat whispered in a sad little voice, "Duck might have found some better friends." "He might," sighed the squirrel, "friends who let him help." And the more they thought about it, as they plodded back, the more they were sure that they are right. So it started out as a little thought. It got bigger and bigger and more detailed. But when they were almost home, they saw light shining from the old white cabin. "It's Duck!" they shrieked as they burst through the door. And the duck was happy to see them. He was also very hungry, and though it was late, they thought they would all make some pumpkin soup. When the duck stirred, the cat and squirrel didn't say a word. Not even when the duck stirred the soup so fast that it slopped right out of the pot. Not even when the pot got burnt. Then the duck showed the squirrel how to measure out the salt, so it wouldn't be too salty. And the soup was still the best you ever tasted. So once again, it was peaceful in the old white cabin, until the duck said, "I think I'll play the bagpipes now." Whose job was the bagpipes? That's Cat's job, isn't it? What do you think happened then? So did they really learn their lesson? Or do they still have some learning to do? Who were our characters in this book? Who's the main character? Who is it mostly about? It seems to mostly be about Duck. How was Duck feeling? What was the problem? Did the problem get fixed? Was there a solution? Where did this story take place? What was the setting? Have you ever felt left out, like you wanted a turn at doing something different? How did that make you feel? I hope you retell this book to somebody. It is such a wonderful book. Remember, when you retell, you should be able to mention all the characters, especially the main character, and talk about how he was feeling in the beginning of the book, in the middle of the book, and at the end of the book. If there was a problem, and the solution, and then the events. What happened in the beginning? What happened at the middle? What happened at the end? You should definitely be able to name the setting, too, where the story happens. Thank you for reading Pumpkin Soup with me.